The air in the cabin of the Boeing 777 was already thick with the anxiety of a delayed transatlantic departure. Alexander Vance, 35, a man whose professional life was built on meticulous planning, appreciated the irony. He had secured seat 12A 6 months in advance, a bulkhead window seat in the main cabin, granting both leg room and a barrier against the chaos of the central aisle. For the next 11 hours, this small, triangular space was his office, his sanctuary, and his final study hall before the presentation that would define the next decade of his career. His firm, Vance & Associates, was bidding on the largest infrastructure project in the UK this year, and Alex intended to walk off this flight ready to win. He had just finished setting up, laptop charging, documents organized in the seat pocket, and a small, monogrammed leather portfolio containing the final, sensitive blueprints, tucked securely in the overhead bin directly above him. He adjusted his noise-canceling headphones, the low thrum of the engine already a therapeutic rhythm. When the boarding bottleneck reached his row, 2 women, clearly sisters, stopped abruptly, blocking the aisle traffic. They both wore oversized sunglasses perched on top of their heads. Despite being indoors and carried identical, expensive-looking luggage that was marginally too large for the overhead compartments. The taller one, whom Alex mentally labeled Veronica, the aggressive leader, scanned the row, her eyes landing squarely on Alex. Her lips thinned. "You're in the wrong seat." "Sir," Veronica stated, her voice carrying a grating, insistent quality that cut through the background noise. Alex lowered his headphones. "No, I'm in 12A. This is my boarding pass." He held it up, a visual confirmation that was usually enough to end these minor disputes. The shorter sister, Bethany, the passive-aggressive strategist, stepped slightly forward, leaning in with a practiced, saccharine smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, sweetie, we know that. But see, there's been a mix-up in the system. We're sisters and we need to sit together for logistical reasons. Our seats are 12B and 12C, and we just need this window seat to complete the symmetry, right?" Alex glanced at his ticket again. 12A. The sisters were clearly hoping he would be too polite, too tired, or too eager to avoid a scene. He wasn't. "I understand you want to sit together," Alex replied, keeping his tone level. "But your seats are 12B and 12C. This is 12A. I purchased this seat specifically." "You already are sitting together," Veronica huffed, placing a manicured hand on her hip. "Don't be deliberately obtuse. Our original tickets were 12A and 12B. We only accepted this last-minute change because they swore they could move someone. They said the window seat was free." "Well, it wasn't," Alex said flatly. "I'm here, and I'm not moving." He put his headphones back on, a clear signal that the conversation was over. The effect was instantaneous and explosive. Veronica leaned forward, her voice rising in pitch. "Are you seriously going to make 2 women who haven't seen their ailing mother in months sit apart? It's 11 hours! I need my sister next to me for support. What kind of heartless monster are you?" The surrounding passengers in the bulkhead row and the aisle turned their heads. The boarding process slowed to a glacial pace behind the sisters. The stakes had been successfully raised from a minor seat dispute to a public moral indictment. Alex removed his headphones again, feeling the heat rise in his collar. His calm was a finite resource, and this was exactly the kind of confrontation he needed to avoid before his pitch. "Ma'am, I am traveling on business for a critical matter. I booked this specific seat for a reason and paid extra for the privilege," Alex insisted, maintaining eye contact. "I am happy to swap with you if you have a seat with equivalent legroom and window access, but you already have 2 perfectly good aisle and middle seats next to each other." "Equivalent? You think the middle and aisle seats are equivalent to the window seat? Are you delusional?" Veronica scoffed, exchanging an exasperated look with Bethany, who was now subtly dabbing her eyes with a silk handkerchief. The cabin was now silent. The entire forward section focused on the escalating drama. A flight attendant, a young man named Kevin, rushed forward, his face strained. "Ladies, sir, please. We need to keep the aisle moving. May I see your boarding passes, please?" Veronica shoved her phone, the digital boarding pass, into Kevin's face. Bethany did the same, quickly whispering, "Tell him we need to be together. It's an emergency family situation." Kevin, flustered, checked the seats. He looked from the phones to the seat tags. He looked at Alex's paper pass. Sir, your seat is indeed 12A. Ladies, your seats are 12B and 12C. You are sitting next to each other. Everything seems correct. Kevin tried to smile reassuringly, hoping to diffuse the situation with bureaucratic confirmation. Veronica snatched her phone back. No, it is not correct. We are asking, no, demanding, a simple common courtesy swap. This man is clearly a selfish bachelor who doesn't understand the meaning of family support. She turned to the surrounding passengers. Can someone please tell this man how cruel he's being? It's just a seat! Alex felt the familiar cold pressure of public scrutiny. He knew if he gave in now, the presentation would be tainted by the memory of this capitulation. He looked at Bethany, who had mastered the art of looking profoundly wounded. It's not just a seat, Alex stated clearly, making sure the people around him heard. It's a contract. I paid for this specific location. If the airline wishes to compensate me for the inconvenience, I will consider it, but I won't be bullied out of it. This mention of money seemed to send Veronica into a new phase of fury. Compensation? Oh, you're cheap and selfish. We're not going to pay you for a seat we essentially need. Kevin, realizing the situation was now beyond simple customer service, visibly stiffened. He pulled out his radio. I'm calling the senior flight manager to the forward cabin. 5 minutes later, the senior flight manager, a woman named Ms. Davies, arrived. She was formidable, her movements deliberate, her expression completely unreadable. The delay was now significant, and the entire plane was hushed. Sensing the moment of judgment, Veronica immediately launched into a highly dramatized account of Alex's cruelty and the supposed trauma of having to sit inches away from her sister instead of with a wall between them. Bethany offered quiet, continuous sniffles. Ms. Davies listened, nodding slowly, her eyes sweeping over the combatants. When Veronica finally paused for breath, Ms. Davies stepped closer to Alex, but her words were directed at the sisters. Ladies, the manifest confirms Mr. Vance's seat is 12A. Your seats are 12B and 12C. This flight is now 25 minutes behind schedule due to this ongoing dispute. She paused, and Alex noticed a strange flicker in her eye as she looked at him. Not of irritation, but of professional deference. She seemed to know him. Was he a frequent flyer? Yes, he was, but this felt deeper. You must sit down in your assigned seats immediately, or we will be forced to notify the gate agent and ground security for a contract of carriage violation. Veronica paled slightly, finally registering the severity of the threat. She threw her hands up. Fine, we'll go. But I want your name and his name. This is absolutely discriminatory. My name is Ms. Davies, and I am the senior flight manager, she replied evenly. I'm afraid I cannot give you passenger details, but you may direct any complaints to the airline's customer relations. Grumbling, the sisters began to maneuver their oversized bags. Bethany shot Alex a look of pure, concentrated venom. Enjoy your little window, you pathetic little man. Hope your big meeting crashes and burns. The curse was petty, but it stung the fragile bubble of Alex's pre-pitch calm. He watched them turn away to move toward the middle of the plane, and the cabin let out a collective, audible breath. Just as the aisle cleared, Veronica stopped dead in her tracks, halfway down the galley and spun back around. Her face was contorted in a final, ugly burst of resentment. In a swift, malicious motion, she reached up to the overhead bin right above Alex's seat, located his leather portfolio, and with a vicious pull, yanked it out. The thin, expensive leather caught the edge of the compartment. The latch gave way with a sickening snap, and the contents, dozens of detailed architectural renderings, sensitive financial projections, and the full, laminated proposal for the London contract, exploded across the narrow aisle in a kaleidoscope of white and blueprint blue. The papers fluttered down onto the carpet, some sliding under nearby seats. Oops, Veronica sneered, her voice dripping with false innocence. Clumsy me. Maybe you shouldn't have been so selfish with your little seat. The silence that followed was deeper and heavier than before. It was the silence after a physical blow. The passengers gasped. Kevin rushed forward, bending immediately to help gather the scattered documents. Alex didn't move for a long moment. He stared down at the ruined, dented portfolio cover and the pages now smudged with dirt and the remnants of a passenger's spilled coffee from a few rows back. The curse about his meeting crashing and burning had just been given physical form. His preparation, his focus, his entire professional reputation now lay scattered and compromised on the filthy floor of a commercial jet. Slowly, Alex reached down and picked up one of the scattered documents. It wasn't a blueprint. It was a thick, silver-backed corporate identification badge clipped to a lanyard that had been secured inside the portfolio's zippered pocket. He looked at the command. "We are offloading passengers 12B and 12C," echoed through the silent cabin like a gunshot. The effect on Veronica and Bethany was physical. The entitled smirk vanished from Veronica's face, replaced by a ghastly, wide-eyed terror. Bethany emitted a choked sob, the feigned fragility of minutes ago now frighteningly real. Two burly, uniformed security officers, accompanied by the crisply dressed station manager, arrived at the open door of the aircraft with alarming speed. The energy in the plane shifted from simple curiosity to palpable tension. Ms. Davies, the senior flight manager, did not mince words. She pointed directly at the sisters who were still frozen by row 12. "Gentlemen, these two passengers are responsible for intentional property damage to sensitive corporate materials and non-compliance with crew instructions, resulting in a significant departure delay. They are to be escorted off the plane immediately, and all their checked luggage must be pulled from the cargo hold." Veronica finally found her voice, shrill and desperate. "This is ridiculous. This is profiling. You can't do this. I demand to speak to your supervisor. This little man lied. He provoked us." The station manager, a man whose patience had been refined by years of dealing with airport crises, stepped forward, blocking her path to Alex. "Ma'am, this is not a discussion. You have violated the contract of carriage by deliberately interfering with the safe and timely operation of this flight, and you have committed property damage against a fellow passenger. We have multiple witnesses. Please gather your belongings and come with us quietly." As one of the security officers gently but firmly took Veronica's elbow, she yanked her arm back, her composure completely gone. "No, I paid for this ticket. This is my flight. I have a connecting flight. I'll sue you. I'll sue him." She pointed a trembling finger at Alex, who was now kneeling to collect his sodden, crumpled blueprints, his face a mask of cold professionalism. The other sister, Bethany, was already weeping openly, clutching her handbag. "Ronnie, please, just go. We've ruined everything." "We ruined nothing," Veronica spat back, momentarily abandoning her public performance for private fury. "He ruined everything. He could have just moved." The two officers, having dealt with this exact flavor of irrational resistance countless times, moved with practiced efficiency. They swiftly but non-aggressively guided the flailing Veronica and the sobbing Bethany up the aisle. As they passed the other passengers, the sisters' faces were vivid portraits of humiliation and disbelief. The collective gaze of the cabin felt like a heavy, judgmental shroud. Once the sisters were gone and the door was secured, a wave of low murmurs swept the cabin, quickly shushed by the remaining flight attendants. Ms. Davies immediately knelt beside Alex, ignoring the dirty floor. Her face was tight with apology and profound concern. "Mr. Vance, I cannot apologize enough for this egregious situation," she whispered, her voice husky with professional stress. "This is completely unacceptable behavior. I assure you these passengers will be flagged and banned from Global Atlantic services immediately, and we will press charges for the property damage. We are documenting everything." Alex carefully picked up a sheet of the proposal that had absorbed the coffee stain like a blotter. It was the executive summary, the most critical, glossy, finished page. It was ruined. "Thank you, Ms. Davies," Alex replied, his voice still low but lacking any warmth. He held up the waterlogged page. "Documentation is fine, but the fact is the final bound proposal for the T5 expansion is now compromised. These were the working copies, yes, but the integrity of the data has been violated, and the presentation materials are physically damaged. I need these materials intact when I land." Ms. Davies' eyes widened slightly, realizing the full scope of the disaster. This wasn't just a passenger being inconvenienced. This was a multi-million-dollar bid for the airline's own capital project subsidiary. "Sir, If you can proceed to first class, I will personally assist you, Ms. Davies said, rising swiftly. I am authorizing a complimentary upgrade immediately. We have a full business center available with printing and secure scanning. We have a satellite communication system. If you can recover the files from your laptop, we will do everything to help you reconstruct them in flight. Anything you need. Alex glanced at the scattered papers one last time. He knew this was the best immediate response. He needed the quiet, the space, and the resources. The scramble to re-prepare had to start now. I appreciate that. Ms. Davies, I will need the strictest confidentiality on this matter, and I need access to those facilities immediately. Consider it done, Mr. Vance. It's the least we can do. We understand the gravity of this pitch to the entire GAA portfolio. Minutes later, Alex was settling into a massive, private first-class suite. The flight attendants, now briefed on his corporate status, treated him with a combination of reverence and urgency, bringing him fresh supplies, industrial-strength wipes for the papers he had managed to salvage, and connecting him directly to the plane's high-speed satellite network. He opened his laptop, the relief of having digital backups washing over him, a backup plan for a situation he never imagined. Physical document sabotage. His work began immediately, cross-referencing the damaged hard copies with the digital files, scanning the salvageable blueprints and relaying out the entire presentation deck. The original quiet sanctuary of 12A had been traded for the luxurious, but intensely pressurized, workspace of first class. He worked, the engine noise a dull, distant roar, focused entirely on the crisis at hand. He barely noticed when the plane finally pushed back and lifted into the sky, already an hour and 15 minutes behind schedule. Meanwhile, in the sterile, fluorescent glare of the gate area, Veronica and Bethany were experiencing the brutal reality of their actions. Their names had been red-flagged, their flight connections dissolved, and their immediate travel ability revoked. The station manager had been coldly efficient. They had been issued 2 letters stating their ban from the airline and informed that they would be contacted regarding the charges of property damage. This is an international incident, Veronica screamed, tearing up the ban letter. She was pacing the deserted gate, her makeup streaked, her composure entirely lost. He's a director of their infrastructure? This is a conspiracy! He used his power. Bethany huddled miserably on a plastic seat, staring at the floor. Ronnie, we should never have touched his bag. We should have just sat in 12B and 12C. We're stranded. What do we do now? We're going to miss Aunt Carol's surgery. Shut up, Beth. Stop crying. We are not stranded. We have rights, and we have leverage. Veronica stopped pacing, a cold, calculating look replacing the hysteria in her eyes. The humiliation was hardening into something far more dangerous, calculated vengeance. She snatched Bethany's phone. Who do you know? Your friend from law school? Dennis? Get him on the line. We need to spin this. We need to hit them where it hurts. Bethany weakly gave her the number. While Dennis, a mid-level corporate lawyer, was skeptical and warned them off an official lawsuit, Veronica had a different plan. She remembered the corporate badge, GAA infrastructure. She knew the world of high finance and corporate gamesmanship. Dennis, tell me something, she purred into the phone, her voice regaining its practiced, manipulative charm. If this director, Alexander Vance, is flying to London for a huge Terminal 5 project, who exactly is he pitching to? Who is the client? Dennis, perhaps flattered by her sudden interest in his professional life, idly gave her the public knowledge. The T5 expansion was a joint venture between the London Airports Authority, LAA, and a major global development consortium called Ethelred Capital. Veronica's mind raced. Ethelred Capital, the client. They didn't need to sue the airline. They needed to discredit the bid. Thank you, Dennis. That's all I needed. I owe you lunch. She hung up and threw the phone back at Bethany. Get up. We're not done, Veronica commanded, her voice now chillingly steady. We have an hour until the next non-GAA flight to London. You're going to book it. We are going to land before Alexander Vance, and we are going to make sure that the people he is pitching to know exactly what kind of unhinged, power-tripping bully they are hiring to build their airport. Bethany looked up, her fear mixed with a terrifying flicker of comprehension. Ronnie, that's illegal, isn't it? To interfere with a business contract? It's not illegal if we're just sharing our truth and protecting the public from a documented narcissist, Veronica hissed, already moving toward the ticket counter. He wanted to make a public scene? Fine. We're going to make sure his grand finale is a career-ending disaster. He thinks he won the battle for 12A. He just signed a death warrant for his company. Her speed was terrifying. Within 40 minutes, they were through security again, clutching new, expensive tickets on a rival airline's direct flight to London, scheduled to land 2 hours before Alex's delayed GAA flight. As she strode onto the jet bridge, Veronica paused and pulled out her phone. She took a selfie, her eyes still red but now fierce. She opened a new message and began typing, "Global Atlantic cruelty. Corrupt director. Airline abuse." The small, petty grievance of a window seat had successfully morphed into a full-scale corporate sabotage mission. The consequences were about to escalate far beyond the confines of a single airport gate. Veronica and Bethany. The first-class suite, minutes ago a tranquil, high-altitude office, now felt like the command deck of a military submarine during a depth-charge attack. Alexander Vance gripped his phone, the blurry video showing his own corporate badge clearly visible as he knelt by the coffee-stained documents. The accompanying text, threatening to compromise the T5 expansion bid with Ethelred Capital, was a corporate assassination attempt launched over a seat swap. Alex didn't waste time on rage. That was a luxury he couldn't afford. He immediately used the encrypted satellite communication line provided by the senior flight manager to contact his chief of staff, Marcus Bell, who was currently 8 time zones behind him, preparing to start his workday. "Marcus, drop everything. Code black." Alex's voice was low, cutting through the cabin's hum. Marcus, a man known for his unflappable demeanor, picked up on the severity instantly. "Alex, what's happened?" 2 passengers, 12B and 12C, were offloaded for intentional property damage to the proposal documents. They discovered my GAA corporate identity. They have since booked a flight on a rival carrier and are landing in London 2 hours ahead of me. They are publicly threatening to contact Ethelred Capital and the LAA to discredit the entire Vance & Associates pitch team, citing power abuse. Check the secure alerts. The video is trending. A silence stretched across the satellite link. A 2-hour head start on a smear campaign. "This is insane, Alex. It's effective. We need an immediate counter-response. You have 2 objectives. First, damage control. Get the Global Atlantic legal and communications teams involved immediately. I want a statement drafted, simple, professional, and factual. 2 non-compliant passengers were offloaded for intentional property damage and flight interference, unrelated to the professional status of any passenger. Do not name me. Just state the facts and use the strongest possible language regarding airline safety and vandalism." "Got it. Initiating PR fire drill now," Marcus confirmed. "What's Objective 2? "Objective 2 is the client. They are landing before I have a chance to brief the LAA and Ethelred on the situation. If the sisters get to them first, the entire bid is tainted with a public emotional narrative. I need to inoculate the client." Alex pulled up the contact file for the lead partner at Ethelred Capital, a highly respected but ruthlessly pragmatic financier named Elias Thorne. "I can't send an email now. It'll look panicked. I need you to reach out through our trusted intermediary, the one who handles the initial logistics." "Julianne at LAA," Marcus supplied. "Precisely. Have Julianne call Elias Thorne right now. She needs to tell him this. A minor but disruptive passenger incident occurred on Mr. Vance's flight, involving 2 individuals who were removed by security for vandalism. They are now making false, retaliatory threats aimed at jeopardizing the T5 bid. Mr. Vance has the full support of Global Atlantic Airlines, and he will provide a full, confidential briefing on the incident immediately upon landing, 1 hour before the scheduled pitch. The incident had 0 impact on the quality of the final revised proposal." The urgency was palpable. Alex was not fighting for the seat anymore. He was fighting to keep his firm solvent. If they lost this bid due to an airplane confrontation, the consequences for Vance & Associates would be devastating. Marcus promised action. "Done, Alex. I'm pulling the team together now. Focus on the pitch. We'll handle the ground war." But the ground war had already begun in London. Veronica and Bethany had landed at Heathrow, their bodies running on pure adrenaline and spite. They were 2 hours ahead, but the rival airline's landing time was less important than the time it would take to locate and ambush the corporate power players. They were a mess. Their clothes were wrinkled from the overnight flight. Bethany's eyes were swollen from crying, and Veronica's expensive suit looked slept in. They found the fastest airport taxi, and Veronica, her research done via frantic in-flight Wi-Fi, barked directions to the city, Ethelred capital. "They won't have a public reception for us to walk into," Bethany mumbled, clutching her purse. "No, but they have a corporate directory, and thanks to Dennis, I know the name of one of the partners who sits on the LAA board," Veronica sneered, scrolling furiously through LinkedIn profiles. "We don't need to walk into their lobby. We need to create noise. We need to create doubt." She settled on a strategy. She found the professional profile of a mid-level public relations executive who worked for LAA, easily accessible via a quick search. Veronica messaged the PR executive directly, "Urgent. Need to discuss potential PR crisis regarding the T5 expansion bid." A director from a bidding firm, Alexander Vance of GAA Infrastructure, was recorded abusing his corporate power and having innocent women banned from his flight for a petty disagreement. "We have the video. This is extremely high risk for LAA's public image. Contact me immediately before we release this to mainstream media." She attached the viral video clip. The PR executive's response was almost instantaneous. A simple text, "Please call me immediately. I have seen the video." A triumphant, vicious smile spread across Veronica's face. "See, Beth, leverage. It's all about timing." She leaned back in the cab, savoring the moment of impending destruction. She had successfully bypassed the gatekeepers. Now, they just needed to find a prominent public space near the Ethelred offices to solidify their position. She guided the cab to a 5-star hotel near the financial district, paying the driver with a wad of emergency cash. We get a coffee, we sit in the lobby, and we wait for the LAA PR person to call back and invite us to their office to resolve this, Veronica instructed Bethany. "We don't settle for anything less than a formal public retraction from GAA and the firing of Alex Vance. He wanted a fight? He got one." Alex's plane began its slow descent into the gray London morning, still running an hour and 15 minutes late. In the first-class cabin, Alex was now wearing a fresh shirt provided by the attentive crew. The new proposal copy, professionally rebound by the flight's secretarial service, sat pristine on the table. He received a brief, coded update from Marcus. Julianne placed the call. "Thorne has been briefed and is aware of the situation. He wants details. Legal has issued the safety statement. Viral video is slowing down but not dead. The communication was successful, but the situation remained volatile. Elias Thorne of Ethelred Capital was a known quantity. He hated drama and he despised weakness. Alex's only play now was radical transparency and strength. As the plane hit the tarmac, Alex received a final, chilling text message from an unfamiliar international number. "We just spoke to LAA. Your pitch is dead on arrival. Mr. Vance, enjoy your career crash landing." Alex pocketed the phone. He knew he couldn't just walk into the LAA boardroom. He had to meet this threat head-on in a public forum. Before the pitch, he disembarked quickly, skipping the customs queue with the help of a global Atlantic liaison who met him on the jet bridge. "Mr. Vance, your car is ready. We're heading straight to the LAA headquarters," the liaison stated. "No," Alex corrected, his voice firm. "Change of destination. I need to go to the Pennington Hotel lobby. It's 2 blocks from the LAA office. And call security. I need 2 of the best ground team members I have on site in 20 minutes. I need to meet 2 unauthorized visitors who think they're setting a trap for me, but they've just stumbled into one of their own." Inside the opulent, hushed lobby of the Pennington Hotel, Veronica sat at a small marble table sipping an overpriced espresso. She had just finished a tense 5-minute call with the LAA PR executive, who, terrified of the viral video's impact, had agreed to meet them at this neutral, discreet location in 45 minutes to discuss an amicable resolution. She glanced at Bethany, who was nervously tapping her foot. See, they're running scared. We hold all the cards now. They won't risk this blowing up globally right before the bid is awarded. Suddenly, the lobby doors swept open. Alex Vance stood framed in the entrance, not looking harried or exhausted, but immaculate, cold, and utterly dominant in a perfectly tailored suit. Two large, quiet men in dark blazers stood several paces behind him, scanning the room. Veronica stood up, a smug, venomous smile spreading across her face. Well, look who finally arrived. Late as usual, Mr. Vance. Did you enjoy first class? We were just about to tell your new friends all about the man they hired to build London's future. Alex walked slowly toward their table, his eyes locked on Veronica. He stopped 3 feet away, his expression unreadable. He ignored her taunt completely. The LAA representative you are waiting for is not coming, Alex stated simply. Veronica laughed, a brittle, strained sound. Oh, really? Why don't you tell me that when she walks through that door? She's 45 minutes away, and she knows we have proof you're a complete lunatic. Alex's gaze flickered to Bethany, then back to Veronica. The LAA executive you spoke to, Ms. Hayes, didn't set this meeting. I did. She was reporting directly to Julianne, who was reporting directly to me. You sent your threat to a PR department that is contractually obligated to inform Global Atlantic's major corporate partners of any social media attack. Veronica's triumphant posture faltered. She looked confused, then deeply anxious. What are you talking about? Alex reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a standard, legal-sized manila envelope sealed with red wax. He placed it squarely in T. The red wax seal of the legal manila envelope felt ice-cold against Veronica's fingertips. Her brain, usually a whirring, aggressive machine, stalled completely, paralyzed by the sudden shift in power. Her global corporate sabotage had been neutralized in under 60 minutes by a man who wasn't even scheduled to be in the country yet. This is coercion, Veronica finally managed, her voice a reedy tremor instead of a powerful shout. She slammed the envelope back onto the table. I'm not acknowledging receipt of anything. You can't force us to take a flight. Alex glanced at the two quiet men in dark blazers, his security detail. The envelope contains the flights, Veronica, purchased in your names, leaving from Heathrow in 90 minutes. If you refuse to accept the official service of the injunction and complaint, my team will simply have a London solicitor deliver them to you at the next available address, likely the airport security holding area. The charges, including attempted corporate espionage, stand regardless. We're offering you a discreet exit to go see your ailing relative. Or we can proceed with a highly public arrest right here in this hotel lobby. 10 minutes before I walk into my final presentation with the LAA, Bethany burst into fresh, high-pitched tears. Ronnie, please! We have to go. I can't go to jail. The shame was a physical weight, heavier than any bag. Every eye in the elegant, quiet lobby, from the concierge to the few scattered guests, was now fixed on them. Veronica, whose entire identity was built on effortless entitlement, was being publicly dismantled. She snatched the envelope, tearing it open and scanning the first page. Global Atlantic Airlines, Inc. v. Veronica E. Harrington et al. The language was cold, dense, and terrifying. You'll regret this. Vance, she hissed, stuffing the papers back in the sleeve. Alex didn't flinch. I regret letting you keep your boarding passes in the first place, but that mistake has been rectified. The car waiting outside is not mine. It's for you. It will take you directly to the gate. He signaled his security detail, who moved to flank the sisters. As they were escorted away, Bethany kept her head down, utterly defeated. Veronica, however, looked back once, her eyes blazing with impotent hatred. She opened her mouth, perhaps to shout one final curse, but Alex simply raised an eyebrow in cold, professional challenge. She closed her mouth, turned, and disappeared through the hotel entrance. Alex watched them go, the brief, icy confrontation having cost him precious mental energy. He walked swiftly over to the concierge desk. Please have that table sanitized immediately, he instructed, smoothing down his fresh, if slightly strained, demeanor. And please direct me to the fastest possible route to the London Airports Authority headquarters. I have 15 minutes. 10 minutes later, Alex was seated in the austere, glass-walled conference room at LAA, facing a small, intense group, Julianne. The LAA logistics lead, and the heavy hitter, Elias Thorne, managing partner of Ethelred Capital. Thorne was a lean, silver-haired man who possessed the stillness of a predator. He was drinking coffee and looking at Alex with an expression that conveyed neither hostility nor warmth, only assessment. "Mr. Vance," Thorne began, setting down his cup. His voice was a quiet rumble. "Before we begin the technical presentation, let's address the elephant in the room, or perhaps the Karen on the tarmac. Your chief of staff reached out. Ms. Julianne briefed me." Alex nodded, sitting forward, placing his reprinted proposal deck, the new binding a symbol of the crisis overcome, on the table. "Mr. Thorne, thank you for allowing me to address this. Radical transparency is necessary here," Alex stated. "A minor dispute over an intentionally booked, paid-for seat escalated when the passengers in question chose to commit property damage against highly sensitive documents. Their subsequent actions, launching a smear campaign and attempting corporate espionage by targeting your firm, were an act of retaliation, not distress. The moment they realized the true context of the situation, they transformed a minor complaint into a criminal matter." He leaned back, his posture radiating confidence, not defensiveness. "I did not allow the disruption to consume the mission. While they were still in the air, I had our legal and PR teams issue statements and, crucially, I ensured that they were met upon landing. Legally served and put on a flight home." Thorne steepled his fingers, his eyes narrowing slightly. "You preempted the public relations threat and neutralized the aggressors on foreign soil, all while flying an ocean away and finalizing a billion-dollar pitch. That is highly aggressive damage control, Mr. Vance." "It's not aggression, Mr. Thorne. It's strength and control," Alex countered, meeting his gaze evenly. "The T5 expansion is a project that will encounter major geopolitical challenges, public outcry, and corporate hurdles. Ethelred Capital doesn't need a firm that crumbles under pressure. You need a firm whose leadership can identify a threat, calculate the necessary response, and execute it decisively without ever sacrificing the integrity of the project." He gestured to the pristine proposal. "The materials you see before you were ready, reprinted, and re-verified 1 hour before landing. I prioritized the integrity of the contract over the pettiness of the fight. That, I believe, speaks more loudly about Vance and Associates' capabilities than any slide deck could." Julianne, who had been silent, offered a small, appreciative nod. Thorne held Alex's gaze for another 10 tense seconds before a slight, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. "I find your method instructive, Mr. Vance. Now, tell me about your use of prefabricated smart grid modules in the baggage infrastructure." The pitch began. Alex, fueled by the adrenaline of the morning's battle and his professional pride, delivered the presentation flawlessly. He was sharp, focused, and compelling, weaving the technical prowess of his firm with the demonstrated decisiveness of its leadership. Meanwhile, in the departure lounge of Heathrow, Veronica and Bethany sat in grim silence, waiting for their flight. The legal papers lay on the seat between them, a cold testament to their hubris. The flight Alex bought them was indeed to the city where their Aunt Carol lived, cementing the irony of the punishment. "We're ruined, Ronnie," Bethany finally whispered, her face pale. "We're banned from the airline." "We face charges. How much is this going to cost?" Veronica, staring sightlessly at the departure board, replied in a monotone. "The injunction means the video has to come down immediately, and we face substantial fines for every hour it was up." "The corporate espionage charge. That's ruinous. He wasn't just a director, Beth. He was the client's partner. We attacked their own infrastructure division." A moment later, Veronica's phone chimed. It was an email from a former colleague at her old, prestigious consultancy job, the reason she still maintained her haughty, entitled persona. The subject line was simple: Flight Incident, GAA. Veronica opened it, her eyes quickly scanning the text. It was a formal notification. The viral video, now linked back to her professional profile by GAA's counter PR, had triggered a review of her professional conduct during her previous employment. The email confirmed that the company was retroactively withholding a 6-figure deferred bonus that was due to be paid out next month, citing a moral turpitude clause in her contract. specifically tied to the public conduct that caused a business disruption. No, Veronica gasped, clutching her chest. No, no, no. It wasn't just the legal charges or the lost flight. It was the deferred bonus, the money she had been counting on to finance the purchase of their late mother's house and prove her success to her family. That money was now gone, withheld by a company that had nothing to do with the airline, simply because of the professional scandal she had manufactured. Later that afternoon, back at the LAA headquarters, Alex received the news from Elias Thorne. Vance, "The presentation was excellent," Thorne said, shaking his hand. "The bid is yours. T5 expansion starts next quarter. We need people who can build under pressure." Alex felt a wave of profound relief and exhaustion wash over him. "Thank you, Mr. Thorne. Vance & Associates won't disappoint." He walked out and immediately called Marcus. "We won the bid, Marcus. Mission accomplished. Amazing, Alex. You played that brilliantly." And as a final note on the antagonists, legal just confirmed the sisters were served and boarded their flight. And get this, the deferred bonus Veronica was counting on? It was tied to a $1.2 million legacy payment from their late mother's trust, which they needed to settle an estate debt. That payment was contingent on Veronica maintaining a clean professional record for 6 months after leaving her last firm. Because she manufactured a criminal case against a corporate partner and violated the turpitude clause, the entire $1.2 million has been forfeited and automatically reverted to a designated third-party charity. Alex stopped walking, a single sharp intake of breath the only sound he made. He hadn't just gotten his seat back. He hadn't just won a bid. He had triggered a financial catastrophe for them, a $1.2 million consequence. "For a window seat?" Alex murmured. Marcus's voice was grim. "No, Alex, for criminal vandalism and corporate sabotage. Their greed cost them their family's entire inheritance. That, my friend, is final-level karma." The full, devastating justice karmic shock had landed. Alex had won far more than his seat. He had exposed the rot of their entitlement and watched it consume their entire fortune. The celebratory dinner held that evening was subdued, a private affair between Alex, Julianne, and Elias Thorne. The contract signing for the T5 expansion was secured, marking the largest project win in Vance & Associates history. Yet amidst the clinking of glasses, a strange gravity persisted. Alex kept his focus professional, discussing timelines and logistics. But the shadow of the morning's absurd confrontation was undeniable. Later, alone in his hotel room overlooking the glittering expanse of the city, Alex reviewed the final reports from Marcus. The legal hammer had indeed fallen swiftly. The injunction against Veronica and Bethany required the immediate and permanent deletion of the viral video and all associated defamatory content. The civil suit for property damage and corporate interference remained, serving as a constant, looming threat designed to enforce their silence and compliance. The true, permanent damage, however, was detailed in the final memo regarding the estate settlement. The $1.2 million legacy, intended for the sisters to settle their mother's estate and keep the family home, was officially rerouted to the designated environmental charity. The documentation was irrefutable. Veronica's single moment of entitled rage, demanding a seat, then escalating to vandalism and corporate sabotage, had cost her and her sister not just a window seat, but their entire financial future and the inheritance they had coveted. Alex sat back, the weight of the realization pressing down on him. He hadn't just defeated them. He had witnessed their complete self-inflicted annihilation, all because they refused to accept the word no from someone they perceived as beneath them. It was a bizarre, almost mythological punishment. He called Marcus one last time, needing to verbalize the surreal outcome. "Marcus, they've lost everything, thanks to an obscure clause in an old contract," Alex said, the victory feeling hollow in that specific regard. "The cost is disproportionate." "It is," Marcus agreed, his voice digitally crisp. "But Alex, consider the alternative. Had you moved, had you let them intimidate the flight attendant, or had you simply absorbed the damage and done nothing, they would have gotten away with it. They would have continued to believe their sense of entitlement was a currency. This outcome, harsh as it is a consequence of their choices at every single escalating turn. They made the first move when they poured coffee on your work. The consequences belonged entirely to them. The conversation crystallized Alex's own actions. He had acted purely on principle and necessity, protecting his property, asserting his right, and then protecting $1 billion contract. The catastrophic outcome for the sisters was a function of their own deep-seated arrogance and poor decision-making under pressure. Days later, Veronica and Bethany were back in their hometown. The flight, paid for by the man they despised, was a journey of profound, silent misery. They had arrived not to comfort their Aunt Carol, but to face their former attorney, Dennis, who delivered the crushing news about the forfeited trust with an expression of bewildered pity. Their local community, initially sympathetic to the vague, tearful video showing two innocent women being removed from a plane, rapidly turned against them. GAA had released a clear, factual statement confirming the property damage and the civil filing, accompanied by a leak facilitated by Marcus's PR team of the sisters' detailed, frantic, and ultimately incriminating email attempts to contact Ethelred Capital. The public narrative shifted from airline abuse to entitled schemers commit corporate crime. Veronica, who had prided herself on being a meticulous planner, was now an object of local scorn. She and Bethany faced the prospect of losing their family home, which the inheritance was meant to save, and the crushing reality of pending legal fees that dwarfed their savings. One afternoon, standing in the kitchen of the home they were now desperate to save, Bethany found a folded piece of paper tucked inside the legal envelope Alex had handed them at the hotel. It wasn't part of the injunction. It was a simple, high-quality stock card, the kind used for formal corporate correspondence. "Ronnie, look at this," Bethany whispered, her voice cracking. Veronica snatched it. It was a business card, not Alex's, but the card of the senior flight manager, Ms. Davies. Written beneath her title in elegant, firm script was a short, handwritten note. "I've worked this job for 25 years. I've seen it all. But your sister damaged a man's property, delayed a critical international flight, and then, after being removed, publicly threatened a multi-billion-dollar project run by the very people who sign our paychecks. That wasn't about a seat. That was pure malice. Know this. Mr. Vance offered to trade you his seat, his first-class upgrade, and even pay for your luggage fees before you ruined his work. He offered a simple, peaceful resolution. You chose destruction." Veronica reread the note, her face draining of color. "He offered to trade? He could have easily given them what they wanted and walked away a hero. But in her blind fury and assumption of moral superiority, she had dismissed his silence as arrogance, never bothering to listen to the flight attendant's initial, simple explanation about the damage proposal. She hadn't even given him a chance to speak after she had ruined his work. She had immediately jumped to intimidation and sabotage. The realization was a punch to the gut. Alex had not blocked their request out of greed. He had blocked it out of necessity, protecting his documents. And then he had offered to overtrade them out of good faith, only for them to escalate the situation beyond negotiation. Her entire grand narrative of injustice was a lie constructed over a simple, fixable miscommunication which her own entitlement had shattered. Back in New York, a week later, Alex was preparing for his next flight. He was flying commercial back in economy by choice. As he settled into a window seat, a completely average, non-upgraded window seat, he felt a strange sense of peace. The crisis was over. The bid was won. The antagonists were neutralized by their own greed. He opened his laptop to a news article Marcus had forwarded. The $1.2 million legacy had officially been received by the charity, which was immediately funding the construction of 2 new clean water wells in East Africa. The headline, Entitlements Cost, Funds Life-Saving Charity. Alex looked out the window at the familiar curve of the jet engine. He had only ever wanted to get to London on time with his work intact. He had gotten his window seat back, won the most important contract of his career, and, completely by accident, routed a small fortune away from malice and toward genuine, life-altering good. The plane began to taxi. Alex looked down at the empty, quiet seat next to him. 12B. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, laminated copy of his own boarding pass. the one that had started it all. He placed it carefully on the empty seat, a silent monument to the absurdity of the fight. He buckled his belt, leaned his head against the glass, and waited for takeoff, ready for the quiet journey home. The cost of a window seat when paid in full by arrogance was often immeasurable.